The property industry welcomed the housing incentives in the federal budget this week. What were some of the standouts?
Yeah, so there was quite a lot in the latest federal budget for property. We saw a number of schemes announced last year extended further. For example, the first home loan deposit scheme and the new home guarantee each had an additional 10,000 places added to them. We also saw the first home loan supersaver scheme increased from a maximum amount of voluntary contributions from $30,000 to $50,000. We also saw a couple of new schemes. So, the Family Home Guarantee, which is designed for single parents who have a dependent to be able to purchase a property with a 2% deposit. Another change that we saw was that the age at which downsizers can make a one off contribution to their superannuation has been decreased from age 65 to 60. So, the idea of that is to help encourage people who are thinking about downsizing to perhaps do so a few years earlier and free up some stock for maybe younger families to buy.
And what about the decrease in age at which downsizers can make the contribution impact property?
Well, the hope is that it is going to free up more homes. So, a major impediment to people selling is that they worry that the money that they'll make from selling will impact their pension, which is one of the reasons this scheme was introduced in the first place. So, decreasing the age limit should help encourage people to downsize a bit earlier. And one of the issues that we have with the property market at the moment is that demand has been outstripping supply. So if this can encourage a bit more supply in the market, hopefully that will be a good thing.
And do you think, Anne, that enough has been done in the budget to help buyers enter the market?
Well, it's a good question. So, a lot of these schemes are great, but the issue is that the demand for this scheme outweighs the number of places available. So, if we look at the Family Home Guarantee, for example, the budget states that there are probably around 125,000 eligible Australians. However, only 10,000 places have been announced. Similarly, with the other schemes, the number of places available falls well short of the demand that there will be for these schemes. So, while it's a step in the right direction, it's probably not enough to help a lot of buyers.
And what about continued border closures throughout the country? How do you think that is going to impact the property market?
Yeah, well, that was an interesting assumption that we all saw in the federal budget, was that the government is not expecting our border international tourists to start coming back in until from mid-22. And even then, they are predicting that the increase in tourist numbers is going to be gradual. Another thing that was in the assumptions was that the return of international students is also likely to be quite slow and staggered. So this means that the challenges that we've seen in the tourism sector, for example, that has been impacted by the loss of international tourists, is likely to continue for some time. Now, an interesting trend that we've actually been seeing is hotels adapting by actually offering longer term leases to people. So what they're effectively doing is competing with traditional residential towers. And for inner city apartment markets that already have high vacancy, this is going to cause further pressure.
It sounds that way. Why do you think some people would choose to live in a hotel rather than an apartment?
Well, it's actually quite cost effective. So the prices for a room in a hotel on these longer term leases are actually competitive with what you would get in inner city markets. The other thing is that hotels tend to have excellent facilities. They come fully furnished. And your bills are all included. So it's actually a pretty convenient option for a lot of people.
So it sounds like we might even start seeing more hotels doing this, would you say?
I think so. I think that now that we have this longer term expectation about how long it's going to take for international tourists to return, some hotels who may have held off doing this are going to think, you know what, this is probably a good way of helping to increase our cash flow over the short term and get on board with this idea.
Yeah, certainly a very interesting one. Well, thank you as always, Anne Flaherty from REA Group. We'll talk to you again this time next week.
Thank you.